Hey, happy Monday. We're here with Chad Nikkel, CEO of Aquaman Pools.
I'm Josh Farley, president of Redline Electric and Solar. Join me as we talk to contractors, business owners, and experts who are willing to share their experiences to help you overcome obstacles when you're taking your business up and to the right.
Chad, thanks for joining us. Tell us exactly, Aquaman Pools is a pool company. Tell us exactly what you do and who you do it for.
So Aquaman Pools is a service repair remodeling company here in Scottsdale. Largely everything's based on pool service, so a recurring revenue business. So we service about 800 pools kind of on a weekly basis, and then repair equipment, equipment repair, and then also remodel. So chip out the entire interior of the pool, maybe do the deck, that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
As well. So yeah.
Cool. So you don't do any new construction pools?
We don't. We have a license for it. We don't really build new
You
pools.
look like you may have done a couple, but you just didn't like it.
Yeah, it's a tough market to build new pools in Phoenix. There's a lot of pool builders out there.
Gotcha. Well, it's a Valley of the Sun, so we need a lot of pools.
That's right.
So I know a couple companies that do recurring models like you, service and repair. Do you limit yourself on area, or is it the entire valley?
So currently we limit ourselves on area.
Okay.
That's probably changing in the next year or two, but my goal is 1,000 pools, right, before we expand. So right now we're keeping to a pretty small area, Scottsdale and Paradise Valley. But we're getting really close, so I think we'll probably open that up to another area here next year.
Gotcha. So what you've owned a few businesses, started when you were younger.
Yep.
Tell us about the first business you started and where you got the idea and how that came to fruition.
Yeah, so I was raised in central Kansas, conservative family.
Go Chiefs.
Yeah, go Chiefs, baby. Conservative family, and it was normal to go to work very young, right, in that upbringing. And went to work right out of grade school, actually, and was working for a home builder that my mother worked for. And kind of started from there into the roofing business. So got a little set of tools and kind of kind of a contact list, if you will. And I got started when I was 15, so I was very, very young. Didn't know a damn thing about business.
And you were putting roofs on?
Yeah.
At 15?
Yeah. So it was a re-roofing company. So in Kansas, obviously there's storms and things like that, but just largely just focused on re-roof and started that way. And so we actually took that business and it kind of morphed that into some other things in the contracting space. Ultimately struggled a bit with that business, through the years, and then kind of changed it, lost it in bankruptcy, actually, the initial name in bankruptcy.
What happened?
Yeah, it was a painful time. So, it was one of those things that really kind of a tough learning experience, I think, and an expensive learning experience, let's call it. One of the things that I think of now is that you don't trust everyone, right?
Right.
And that's largely, it all boiled down to somebody that I trust that ultimately cost me a lot of money. And we just got upside down and some legal issues. And, the only thing that made sense at the time was bankruptcy, unfortunately. But we did, from that lesson, let's call it,
Yep, of course.
I learned a lot of things about about business and how to set it up correctly and lower your risk and things like that as far as exposure is concerned. So we took that and moved it into more of a construction company. And we started doing metal buildings, kind of pre-engineered steel buildings and that kind of thing.
So bankruptcy, you got that behind you, lesson learned. Now you have a construction company.
Yep.
When in that business, did you had a partner?
No, I've never actually had partners. I've been investors and kind of silent partners in some businesses, but I've never had a working partner in a business.
3 lessons that you would do, or 3 things you would have changed to help you prevent that, or?
I think to help me prevent that was establish the company initially as a LLC,
Okay.
Because ultimately bankruptcy protected some of my personal assets, which was unfortunate. So structure of a business was largely the thing, and then the thing was probably more in-depth contracts, because at the time we were doing a lot of stuff on a business card and the back of a napkin, right? Of course, I was young and didn't know a whole lot, didn't know any better.
Handshake used to mean a lot.
It does. And, and I'm still kind of a handshake guy. Like, hey,
you.
if you look me in the eye and tell me you're going to do it, I expect you to do it.
Right.
That's what I do, right? So, but in reality with contracting, hey, you got to protect yourself. The contract says and the agreement says, and the opportunity to amend and adjust that is up front, not when the job's going, right? So that's kind of that, those are probably the 2 lessons out of that was set the structure of the business up correctly so you protect your personal assets. And then secondly is is make sure the agreements and the contracts are detailed.
Right.
You know? So.
You think a lawyer may have helped you with that, or?
Oh yeah.
I mean, because when I first started out, just thinking about a lawyer made my bank account a cringe. I was like, ugh.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I don't particularly like lawyers, right?
Right.
The damn bill when it says, "Hey, I'm charging you 0.6 of an hour to get your voicemail." Like, don't hide that in the bill. Like, don't put that. Don't line item that. It used to annoy the crap out of me, right? Which. That I'm sure that's a legal thing they have to disclose.
Probably.
But I'm like, yeah, don't charge me to get my email. But
got it. So, got past that. Those are great advice for our listeners. Now you got a contracting company. Then what?
So, kind of went along the way, I guess, with that, and was starting to, kind of knock on the door of burnout train a little bit with that, as contracting can be sometimes, and. The church that I was raised in, my wife and I kind of got a little sideways there, and so I was kind of looking to leave Kansas, to be honest with you, and I found kind of an opportunity to sell off some of that those jobs, or the list that we had, and I had got my pilot's license when I was 19, and I kind of wanted to play with airplanes, and I went and applied for a job at Learjet in Wichita. And they hired me on the spot and said, yeah, we want you, but guess what? The job's in Tucson, right? And so I was like, well, sweet, that sounds awesome. But, I've been married 3 years at this point. I should probably go home and ask the wife, right?
Right.
And so went, and the wife's like, yeah, let's do it. And, of course, she was 4 months pregnant at the time, and, we moved to Arizona and didn't know a soul in Tucson.
Changed careers,
didn't have a lot of money. And, that was the first time I'd ever punched a time clock really in my life, although very early when I was working for the home builder. But I spent 3 years in the business aviation world, which was awesome. Had a great time. That job turned into research and development manager. I traveled around, set up shows for Learjet, met a lot of cool people, spent some time with Sigourney Weaver and people like that, so I had a great time. But I've been an entrepreneur all my life. That really wasn't me, right?
Punching the time clock just doesn't do it. At some point.
And business aviation is very cyclical, and it's a tough business. And ultimately, I got laid off at Lear. But yeah.
So when you sold to come out with a new opportunity, like me, I can't relocate. I've built a business here. Like, that's my livelihood. I'd have to go get a job, and that would be kind of hard.
It sucks.
Selling. Were you able to get a good value? How did you get rid of the company that you had?
Yeah, so at that time, I didn't know a heck of a lot about buying and selling companies.
Right.
At this point, Aquaman's my 8th company, so I've bought and sold a couple along the way, and I make smarter decisions maybe with that now than I did then. Back then, it was kind of a way like, hey, that sounds like a good way to get out from underneath it, right? Today, I look at company value based on what the return is, you know. And, there's something to be said for moving to the next thing and how much of the value you're willing to give up for that.
Right.
But I think that as business owners sell businesses, certain businesses are worth a better multiple than others, right? And contracting companies in general, especially closely held contracting companies, are very difficult to sell because when you take the owner out of the mix, the person that's going to sit in that seat, they have to really understand contracting.
Yeah, no, and then on all the contractors here, we want, we've got hopes and dreams of getting great value, so this show helps us create more value so when we're ready, or if you're ready to sell, we can get top dollar. Yeah, so my experience with selling companies, and just talk about it just for a second, right, and especially in these type of businesses, contracting, is that whether you ever think you're going to sell the company or not, from day one, you've got to set it up to sell. Because if a company will not run on its own, it's not worth the damn thing, right? Right. And you have to set it up. Whether you can hire the general manager right away or the operations manager right away, you have to have that plan in place so that when I hit this revenue model or when I hit this many customers, I'm putting that person in that seat, and you've got to be able to give up control of that person. Because if you're going to helicopter boss that person and not let them actually, spend the time running the business, then you really have nothing that's worth selling, because the only thing worth selling is really the whip at that point, right? So, in my opinion, that's really, really important. And then the second thing is when
when someone comes to buy your business, they're going to look at how much time you're really spending there. And if you have an office there and half of your life is revolving around being inside those doors, that there's a reduction in value in the business because of that.
Gotcha.
So,
he said selling WIP, that's work in progress for those that don't know. Who was the first person that you would hire to get you to create the value? Is it the general manager? Is it an estimator? Like, where did you turn to first?
Well, I think, first of all, as the owner, you got to decide what you want to do in the business. Like, what are you good at? If it's sales, if it's operations, what is that? And then spend your time there to some degree. But then as you start to pull back, you really need that, that service manager or that daily kind of guy, right? My current business, we have a service manager and then we have an operations manager as well.
Gotcha.
So the operations manager is overreaching, right? So the accountant, and reports to him. The service manager reports to him. The only part that doesn't currently report to him is sales, and that's. They still meet with him some, but I still am somewhat involved in sales.
That's what you're good at, sales.
Yeah, I like sales. I like building. I like startup, really. I really like building businesses.
Well, 8 businesses in, I imagine that seems to be recurring.
Thing.
Right.
Yeah, it's like I get itchy feet at about year 7. But, yeah, it's that and then sales. But sales is really, something I really, really enjoy.
Gotcha.
And I always say that sales, you can make a lot of mistakes in business, and sales covers a lot of mistakes. So if you can sell,
So is that like knocking on doors, cold calling, just
it's a lot of things,
you're like,
right?
Right.
Yeah, in the roofing business it was. You got to get the knuckles bloody. If
Right.
you're not willing to knock on a door and have somebody say no to you, then you'll never get the revenue.
Well, I think that's what sets you apart because contractors, we don't like to knock on doors. We have a service. We're good with our hands.
Yeah.
We want to provide that if you call us.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that contractors struggle with is finding new work, knocking on doors.
Yep. And I think in today's world it's different. 15 years ago, people were home a little more, you know what I mean? You could interact a little more direct with them. Today's world, a lot of stuff happens in, with networking one way or another, whether it's, online, social, or in person. It's a little less of that at the kitchen table or at the, on the porch as it used to be. That being said, it still comes down to that, though. It's like as the sale, it's sales for your business, whatever it is, if it's electric or if it's roofing or if it's the pool business, you have to be willing to get out there and commit to get the opportunities.
Right. Okay, let's go back. You were flying. That stopped. When did you start after that?
Well, flying is. I've always been a private pilot. I've never been a commercial pilot. So after that, I went back in the roofing business.
Gotcha.
So we went. Moved to Ohio essentially and helped a couple guys that helped kind of get their business going. And
you left
run their
Tucson
business.
and moved to Ohio.
Yep, we did. So we had that business. We had operation in Columbus and Chicago and St. Louis, and I was kind of just involved in. They were doing a lot of insurance restoration work.
Right.
I was involved in kind of getting their kind of operations or back office right and running it day to day.
What kind of revenues were you doing if you're in three major markets?
So we took that company from 0 to 17 million in about 16 months.
Wow,
so
that's pretty quick.
Yeah, we had a big sales team. I think we had 30 people in Ohio and maybe 20 in Chicago. But it was significant revenue. Now in the insurance world, that's not uncommon if you're know how to really hit that. In Colorado, so I went from there to Denver. So the difference in between Denver and that is that Denver, at least half of our revenue was not focused on insurance work, right? So from a roofing business, insurance work can be very cyclical. So if you're in Texas or you're in Colorado or you're in Montana, all parts of the country have different issues with storms, right? So, and roofing is one of those things that nobody really wants to, it's a shitty sale, right? You're buying a new kitchen cabinet, you're excited about the granite countertop, whatever.
Right.
With the roof, it's either it's leaking or it was damaged by a storm, or it's never exciting, right? Nobody ever really wants it. So overcoming that sale, that part of the sale is probably what made us successful, is figuring out how to make that something that people wanted to get done.
Gotcha.
Right?
So how did you get into the pool business?
So pool business. So I sold.
You'd had partners in that business?
No. I've never had any.
So that was yours.
Yep. Yep.
And you sold.
Yeah, so in Colorado, we had a large roofing company, and then I also was involved in a marketing company that I helped start as well. That I was just ultimately an investor in. But we sold the roofing company, and had that old thing. Someone walks through the door with a checkbook one day, it's for sale, and it went from that to getting the business broker to maybe try and find a better deal or whatever. And so eventually we sold, and came looking to get away from winter ultimately. So
Gotcha.
I looked like a couple different places around the country, and Arizona. Having lived in Tucson,
right?
Everything's kind of against Arizona. It's like the weather's beautiful, it's like the opportunities are great in Arizona. The taxes are low. Don't want a bunch of people moving to Arizona, by the way. But
there's no opportunity left here. Stay
it's
away.
All gone. Yeah, and I think that we settled here when we bought the house at the kind of the bottom of the market.
Right.
2010 ultimately from the bank, and it was a good opportunity. And I started looking for something to do. Really,
you sold your business. You had a little nest egg.
Yeah.
Let me ask about that. Is there anything that you want to share about selling? Or
yeah, so a couple things, right?
There's always something.
Yeah, there's always something. So success in selling a business, like I said, is developing value, right? So what can you get? Everybody thinks their business is worth $10 million when it's probably worth $150,000, right?
Right.
So real value, what it's really worth, and then how to build that value or ratchet that value to where it makes sense to you to sell, right? Those are kind of the key points in selling a business. My learning experience in selling the roofing company in Denver was my largest transaction, right? I bought that company doing $700,000 in revenue and sold it doing right at $40 million 7 years later. My learning experience with that is that we sold to the wrong buyer. We ended up selling to kind of an investment banker group, a couple of guys or VC guys, and it was printing cash. It was a great business, a great bottom line, and essentially we sold that to someone that probably looked at the contracting business as this like amazing opportunity, and looked at the bottom line and thought, well, why can't I have a piece of that, right? Or I know how to do that. I can do that, right? And as you well know, contracting can be complicated.
For sure.
And 9 months in, they basically ran the company into the ground. Ultimately, is what happened, unfortunately. So the learning experience from that is, get the right buyer in the seat if possible. If you can't, get as much of a down payment as you can. Most contracting companies
earn out?
Yeah. So most contracting companies are sold for a downstroke plus a personal guarantee of some, or a promissory note of some kind, and then probably an earnout. So
right.
Try and get the down payment as large as possible, right? And the other thing is reps and warranties. Reps and warranties is something that is tied essentially to the sale of a business, to the APA or however you sell it. And there should be a sunset period on reps and warranties, in my opinion. Having done this a few times, is that the buyer has so and so long ultimately to get buyer's remorse, and at that point in time, which is ultimately what caused us to not collect all of our money.
Gotcha.
So, or I should say me, but yeah.
Well, no, hey, thanks for sharing on that. Let's go back to the pool.
So come to Arizona. I was helping a guy in Denver as well that had a software business, so I spent a little bit of time with that. And I was kind of looking for something to do, right? I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur. I tried that play golf every day thing, didn't really work for me. And I just realized that I kind of like that owning business, right? So I found a girl. I was looking at the pool business, and I found a girl that had a really small route. She had 25 pools, and she was looking to go to New York, 25, 30 pools, something like that. And she was moving, so I bought her route. And she owned Aquaman Pools, the name.
Gotcha.
Here in Arizona, and ultimately bought the company. And I think we're at 5 years later now. 5 years later, we have almost 800 pools that we service on a weekly basis.
Did you buy it with a tech, or were you out there cleaning?
No, it was me and my wife. Yeah. So I don't know if you've ever seen our truck. We have a truck that says Aquaman Pools on one side and Aqua Babes on the other, right? Because she would ride with me, and she didn't want to say Aquaman on her side.
Got it. That's great.
But yeah, so ultimately we ran the route together, and then for a while she ran the route and I did repairs, and then we hired our first tech, and then we just kind of started.
So what are the plans with Aquaman?
So I get that question, right? Because I've sold a few companies. Everybody's like, "You're building this one to sell." Well, the answer is we always build it to sell, but I really don't I have no immediate plans to sell the business because we have a lofty goal that we want to get to from a recurring revenue perspective, and we've got a number of years to get to that goal. And along the way, we're developing a lot of processes that will help other pool businesses, as far as helping them grow as well. So that's one of my goals is to kind of go out there and help some other people do the same thing, and really get to those other levels so that they can live a little better life than hanging on the cell phone.
Gotcha.
Doing the repairs.
It's going to help the industry in a whole.
Yeah.
And what's the entrepreneurism you told me earlier?
Well, I don't know. I say
rising,
a lot
like
of,
if we can help, I say a lot of stuff.
Yeah, rising tides raises all ships.
I love it. No, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're trying to build the contracting world. We're trying to help each other.
Exactly.
Create value all over the place. Yeah. What keeps you up at night?
Probably not a whole lot. My teenager's now made a selection on college, so that's good. That's done. Right. So he's starting at ASU in the fall. So
staying home.
Yeah, he's staying home, going to Barrett in the fall. I think probably one of the things is just building a business that people want to be at. And I think in the pool business it's a little bit hard in the summertime in Arizona. As it's very hot and it's just Groundhog Day. So it's trying to kind of build that thing where technicians want to be at my company versus someone else's, right? And that's an ever-changing thing. It's different today than it was 2 years ago, and 2 years ago it was different than it was 2 years before that. So I think as contractors, it's trying to figure that out. So,
gotcha. Yeah. Anything we didn't cover that you think?
I didn't.
Geez, Louise, that was great. I think.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything we didn't cover. My thing with having been an entrepreneur, for a long time, I should say. I look at what you're doing here, and it's amazing. It's great. You're helping contractors. You're helping other entrepreneurs, and I believe as entrepreneurs, especially involved in EO and some other things,
right?
We can make such an impact on our world. The world runs on the backs of small business,
for sure.
And by running our businesses to help have people have a great place to go to work. Customers have a good company to buy from, and all those things. It really helps, our world. And I think it's our responsibility as contractors is to, keep the customers away from the wolves, right? If they don't buy from you, the next guy they might go out there, might be somebody that's a shyster and takes advantage of them, and takes a deposit and leaves, or whatever it is, right? So build a company that customers can do that, but then also from an employee perspective that people want to be at.
For sure. Chad, I appreciate you coming in and sharing your experiences. I know it's going to help me in things that I'm doing, and I know it's going to help them. Thanks for coming in.
Good. Thanks, Josh.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you like what we're doing here, subscribe to our podcast at iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher, and to our YouTube channel to see more episodes. Go to upandtotherright.org to get all the links.